Hello. Today's episode is with Ross Ducat, the founder of an app that uses your flashlight on your phone to put you in a sleep state. When I sat down with Ross, I said I've struggled to get any of these under an hour, so I'm hopeful for today. And 2 hours later, we finished. So because of that, I've decided to split the podcast into two parts. The first part is focusing on Ross's many, many jobs, a little bit of philosophy, and Ross's career as a DJ. And then part two, get all into everything around the app and how Ross created that, which is a fascinating ride. So enjoy. Mr. Ross Ducat, another Ross on my show today. Welcome, how you doing?
I'm doing very good, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Looking very summery as well.
It was very summery this morning, it's not so much now, it's actually a little bit cold.
So you're a little bit chilly now?
Yeah, I regret the shorts.
Well, you look good. That's the prize of looking good sometimes.
Thank you.
So I think. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, Ross.
Thank you.
So for our lovely listeners, give us a little intro to yourself. Who is Ross Ducat?
Are we doing this in what, chronological order? You want it straight from the start?
I always think it's interesting to see how people approach it when I just sort of openly ask it. But I would say, always best to start. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What happened after that? Go.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Essex, Hertfordshire, kind of flicking between the two. Had a lovely childhood. A brother and a sister. Lucky enough to have my parents still together. Grew up kind of on the edge of like an estate, so we had like fields and stuff in the background, so loads of space for me to run around as a kid, which was really, really nice. Then I kind of went to an all-boys school, like a normal school, and yeah, did okay.
What school was that?
It's called Boys High. I can't remember the official name of it. It's not called Boys High, but I can't remember what school I went to.
Boys High.
It was called Boys High. It's the Bishop Stortford High School. Yeah, that was the official name, and that's where I actually grew up in Bishop Stortford, which is it's a nice place. It's it's a really nice place to kind of grow up in the UK. Quite close to London. It's kind of like 45 minutes in the north of London. So you still get some greenery, but it's still quite connected. And yeah, did okay in school. I was lucky enough. I never really had to revise in school. I just kind of just blagged it and ended up doing okay. So did that, and then I went to there was a, what do you call it when you do the thing after sixth form? There was a sixth form there, so I went to the sixth form at the same school, and then I went to university to go and pursue my passion for philosophy. Philosophy, yeah. I've ended up getting 2 philosophy degrees, an undergraduate in philosophy and politics, and then a master's in philosophy, which was called Philosophy, Politics and Applied Public Policy, I think, with a specialism in bioethics and phenomenology. And I did a side bit of metaphysics.
And what was that second?
Phenomenology.
What's that?
That, you're testing me now. That is to do with how the brain experiences the world through phenomena. I think it's called qualia, but that is really testing me now, because that is where I go.
Where did you study that?
Studied that at Essex, kept it true. University of Essex. So I was actually going to go to the University of Manchester, but when we were looking, I really liked Manchester, especially Curry Mile. I thought I could definitely see myself living on Curry Mile. I do like a curry. But when we looked around Essex, they had the most flexibility with their course. They had some really good teachers there. The philosophy department was really good, and that's why I was going there, is for that.
And with philosophy, did you ever have anyone that really stuck with you, or were you not at the right age to properly take it in?
That's a bit of a weird one, really. So you obviously do take it in. I wasn't, I was in my early 20s, so it's not as if I was, ignorant of everything. So at the time, I went down a bit of a hole with Nietzsche. It's kind of it's kind of the logical end to philosophy. And after studying it, it's really hard to refute. And there are 2 forms of nihilism. So there's active and passive. The active is, there are no rules. History isn't to be trusted. The winners write the story. So all knowledge is to be doubted. And instead, what you're actively meant to do is go against power structures or against people that know or claim to know how the world should be. But that's exhausting. So I ended up falling into the passive one, which is basically just nothing matters, which is not a good place to be.
I've always heard the term nihilism. and always kind of understood the general, what people mean when they say it, but I don't actually know what nihilism means.
Yeah. I don't know if I give you a bang-on definition, but it's basically a rejection of knowledge almost in its entirety, and that nothing really matters. It's, the phrase was, God is dead and we have killed him. So there isn't religion anymore. We haven't got that as a moral basis to kind of, work out the rules for society anymore. So what do we do next?
Is it apathy or is it?
That's the passive side. So the active side is, let's go and fight this. But then afterwards, it is exhausting, and you just kind of fall into apathy with it all. Yeah, which is not a healthy place to be, and it took me a long time to work myself out of that.
Well, that's the funny thing about philosophy, isn't it? Because a lot of people, if you really get into the weeds with it, you probably do start to think, I'll be gone in a fair few
I think
turns of the planet.
And there are different ways you can look at that. So it can be quite disheartening, and it can be demotivating, and you can kind of just left with, I don't know what to do with myself. Or you could turn it around and you think, time is limited. Nothing really matters that much. I need to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And I think an awareness of death is something that's really important. It's been really important for me in my life. The kind of Stoic phrase, memento mori, like remember your mortality, remember that you will die. Even to the point where, this might sound a bit weird, but I have planned my own funeral, and I found that very cathartic. And if you think that there is a point in your life when that, you're going to get over various hurdles, but there's one hurdle at the end somewhere that's going to knock you down, and you are going to die, and having that awareness of that, planning for it and making a conscious effort to put yourself there, and what will that be like, and what will people around be doing when I'm dead, makes you kind of value the time you've got right now. So memento mori is quite a phrase that really does resonate with me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something. I wish they taught it more to people when they're younger. I used to be terrified of death. I'm not someone who loves it now, but I used to stay up at night because I hated the idea of what happens afterwards. There's nothing. I used to be deathly afraid of death. Face it. This is what Ryan Holiday. Do you read any Ryan Holiday?
Yes. So
okay, here we go.
Yeah, no, he's a good intro. He is definitely a good intro. He's focused primarily on Stoicism, and Stoicism is a great philosophy in a lot of respects, and it can definitely help a lot of people. If you've never gone anywhere near philosophy, Stoicism is a great way to start. It's like one of the earliest ones. It's a great place to start, and it can give you some solid foundations for trying to live a good life and finding meaning in life. But at the same time, there's a reason that philosophy is carried on after it. It's because it's not a complete philosophy.
This is interesting. So I'm not by any means some kind of philosophy scholar, and apparently Ryan Holiday was actually like a marketing agency or digital marketing. I could see that. And then he got this big following from there, but he always loved Stoicism, and he started to get a bit of traction there, and then that's what he now does. But I remember seeing, he did a tweet once, and I remember seeing one of the things was things you should do every day, and one of them was consider your own death. And I remember thinking, is that really something I should be doing?
Yeah. Well, if you said you've got that fear of it, a lot of fear is thinking about the unknown, and your head just kind of goes crazy, and your anxiety is ruminating over problems, when really the way around that is to just sit there and stare at the problem and face it head on. And one of the best ways to do that is to plan your own funeral. I think you'd find it quite cathartic to go through and think, actually, what would happen? What songs do I want playing? What do I want people to do on the day? Like, how do I want that mapped out? And then once you've seen it mapped out, you'd be like, you know what? It's not too bad.
Yeah, I think the reason I would try and not think about it is because I sometimes think I'm not going to think my way to the answer, therefore what's the point?
What answer are you looking for?
In terms of like what happens?
Well, you can plan it.
As in like afterwards.
Oh, right. Well, yeah.
Because I can't figure that out, I don't try and think. Are you thinking more about the actual idea when you...
Yeah, I am apprehensive about the aftermath. I am strictly quite a materialist, so the world that we see is all there is, but I've had some serious doubts with that lately, not in terms of like a god, or like particularly a spirit realm, but the stories coming out from people's DMT experiences, people that I know, people that I trust, that have had experience with ayahuasca and DMT, they seem to be saying that there's a little bit more. And since there's people I know that, they're not lying to me, whether they have no motivation to it, that has actually given me a little bit of a fright, to the point where I need to go check it out myself. But that's for another time.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's for the time right now. It is interesting. My only experience of learning anything to do with ayahuasca, DMT, these sort of extra world experiences is from listening to Graham Hancock or Joe Rogan or these people talk about it. So I have no real knowledge, but it's definitely, they all seem to say the same thing, that they come out thinking it's all about love.
Yeah.
There's something else. We're
And it's interesting how it doesn't matter age, race, culture, like ethnicity, background, everyone's saying they're going to that same place and having similar experiences and meeting the same like entities. That for me gives it a lot of credence, because if it was like if you were to take a hallucinogen and you took a drug and you're kind of tripping out in your own mind, it's quite a unique experience. It's individual to how your brain reacts. The fact that it doesn't seem to matter where you come from or who you are, and you're having that going to that same place. So I think it's Imperial University, and now mapping it out. So they're giving people intravenously low doses of DMT to saying this is actually a place, and they're asking people to go and map it out and see if they can try and figure out what's going on with this place.
And is this like another plane? What's
supposedly spirit realm? I've heard people, it's a bit weird, and so I'm talking, this is like third-hand experience. I haven't got any experience with this myself, so I'm just relaying what people have told me. But a couple of people have consistently told me that they are being thrown upwards, like through space at a very kind of fast rate, and they go to what they call like the source. So a bit of like light, a ball of light kind of thing, like a god, a kind of origin of where we all are. And apparently that, when you go to this place, that feels like home, and that feels like reality, and this bit feels like a dream when you come back.
Really?
Which is really weird, and I'm very curious about that.
I did see someone say that if you're not like 100% sure where you're at the time, if you've got anxiety, these sort of things, then you should stay well away from DMT, ayahuasca, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give anyone advice. I'm not a shaman. I don't know when like the good and bad time is to do it. But I think if you're not apprehensive and scared of it, if you're going in thinking this is a laugh, you're not ready to do it. I think you should have a bit of anxiety about doing it before you go into that, like with anything like that.
So you come back to Nietzsche.
Reality.
Nietzsche, yeah. We've kind of flown into this 100%. But I've seen quite a few Nietzsche quotes recently. Is it Nietzsche or Nietzsche?
Nietzsche. I mean,
Nietzsche.
Yeah, I don't know he's German, so I don't know the German way to say it. But.
We'll stick with Nietzsche for now. And I said, what's the best book to read of his? And it said, Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
Yeah, years ago. Yeah.
And apparently that's his kind of magnum opus.
He's got an enigmatic style of writing, lots of punctuation, lots of exclamation marks, like capitalization through it. Like he feels like he's giving a speech when you're reading him. It's a really interesting read. He doesn't write like a lot of other people, and you'd have to reread stuff to kind of comprehend it properly, which is why they set a lot less reading at university. Say you study history, you might get 500 words to read a week, or 1,000 words to read a week. Whereas with philosophy, it's like 2, maybe 150, because you have to reread stuff just to kind of process it. But yeah, I feel like that he was operating from a place of some ignorance, and I think at that time that he was writing, humanity felt like we had already reached a peak. Like we've invented loads of stuff, we figured loads of stuff out, when in reality they barely scratched the surface. So I think he's writing from a point of ignorance. And personally, I feel like he hadn't, this might sound a bit weird, but he hadn't accounted for like the black swans that could be coming to his philosophy. And black swan as in, if there were aliens to exist, his theory completely falls apart. Like there is something bigger than what we've got here. There may be meaning that we can't understand. Maybe human cognition isn't the highest form of understanding. Maybe there's stuff way out there, and actually we're, at a comprehension level of like cats or ants compared to these people. And maybe it's something beyond, there is an answer, but it's beyond our understanding. And that stuff wasn't even entertained by him.
So if someone was thinking about dipping their toe in philosophy, who would you recommend to read?
It's interesting you say that, because I've actually just started my dad on a philosophy course, and I've started him with Marcus Aurelius.
Right.
Really great
meditation.
book. In meditation. So the reason it's good is because, one, it's not a philosophy book, so it's not written out in terms of, this is the school of philosophy and everything else.
It's a diary.
It's a diary, and it's a personal, it's not quite a diary as in day one I did this, day two I did that. It's more full of maxims and lessons that he wants to remember so he can live a better life. So it's him kind of teaching himself and writing stuff down that he wants to remember.
It's a little bit like his own personal notes section.
Exactly. Yeah, it was never meant to be released. It's for him. And he was obviously an incredible man, leaders of armies. But again, when you read it, which is, I think there's a lot of this throughout Stoicism, is he's kind of saying so much about how I don't care about when I die, and death is just like a natural part of life, and when my wife dies, I shouldn't cry because I never owned her in the first place. There's a lot of talk about death and saying how it doesn't really matter. It kind of makes me think, like, you're saying it a bit too much. I think it does matter. I think actually deep down you are terrified of death or being slaughtered. Yeah, like you're thinking about it a bit too much. And it's a dated philosophy because they're at a time of brutal Roman rule, so a lot of it can't really apply to now. But there's great lessons to be learned in there. There's some really interesting angles. And he was a great guy. So he's written some good stuff. It's a good place to start. And then if you like that, it does get a bit dry in the middle. If you like that, I would then go to Seneca's Letters. Seneca is very, very much supposedly one of the wisest men that ever lived. And again, it's not a philosophy book. It's him writing to his friend, Julius, was his name? I can't remember. But he's writing to a friend, a philosopher friend of his. And it's just his letters, one-way correspondence to his friend. And he's, again, at the point of death. He's an old man. I think he's like 50, 60 years old. At the time of Jesus, and doesn't even mention Jesus. He's like, I think it's like 35, 40 AD. Jesus doesn't pop up. You'd have thought like God's manifested in human form over the road. You'd have thought he'd have got wind of that. It's just strange how that doesn't pop up. But very interesting. It's weird to go back to a time before countries existed, before there were nation states. There were just kind of tribes and cities. And certain things, you think, God, how times have changed. When he says, hey, I'm going to go to, I think there was a journey he was taking to South Italy or something, and he had to plan for like 4 weeks of it. And you need to take like mechanics with you, you need to take engineers with you, you need to take like a nurse with you, you need to take like people who care for the horses. Like it's a whole train load of people who need to go just for you to make a journey for like a month. Whereas now you just get a flight and be there in 2 hours. Yeah. And then the other side of that is interesting how some things don't change, particularly when he was talking about the gym. So he said we'd go to the gym and it's a load of young men flexing their muscles, showing off, grunting really loudly to kind of get attention. You think some things in human nature have been there for thousands of years. It's interesting.
That's the weird one to think about when you kind of think of historical figures as just that, historical figures, and then you realise they have similar thoughts and questions that you did. Yeah. Actually, are you quite into your history?
Not really.
Not really. Then I'm going to scrap my next story because it's not relevant. But right, so you studied philosophy. What was your first job outsourcing? Just to preface this as well for anyone listening, Ross currently is the founder of a company called Lulu Light, which is a inbuilt app on your phone that can help put you to sleep, or many other things, which we will get onto soon.
For the moment,
First, we want to know how Ross got to this point. So you finished philosophy. Where did you go next?
Where did I go after that? I actually then went touring to Canada, which was just complete chance. Weirdly, in my second year of university, I'd had a phone call from my dad telling me, I know this is a bit weird. I vividly remember the phone call. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I was very hungover. And he said, look, this is a bit weird, but you've got a load, like 70 plus long lost cousins that you've never met before, you don't know. All descendants from my granddad's sister. And it's kind of been shunned from the family. Some terrible old, back in the day racism that kind of meant she was shunned. And then my dad had kind of reignited that connection because they were now living in Canada. So he told me about that and said, we need to go see them. I'd never met them. It was like a load of family I'd never met. And after university, there was a scheme with, I can't remember the company, but some company was doing a discount. So they could say for £200 or dollars, we would get you a work visa for 6 months. We'd get you a placement out there. And you could just come and live and run around in Canada for 6 months. So I thought, this is perfect. I've got some family out there. They're in East, in Toronto, and I want to work out in West. Had no idea the Winter Olympics was actually on that year in 2010. So I just got a job with a hotel. I'd never heard of the brand The Four Seasons before, but I ended up working for the Four Seasons Hotel. Okay. And since I kind of fluffed every question in the interview, the only thing that I did well at were the ski questions, because I'd been away skiing with my family a few times. I'd been snowboarding. So I got put into the snowboard department for the Four Seasons. And that was potentially the coolest I ever was, because at the time I was really into DJing, so I was playing in some club nights out there, and then my job in the day, which was amazing, I had to go up to the very top of the mountain from my house, so I could come out, get the ski lift to the top of the mountain, snowboard like down a few of the tracks, go back up again, snowboard down the other side of the mountain, and then would tell the guests where the good snow was. So my job was to go around and snowboard and then tell them where the good stuff was, and then hand their boots over and like collect the kids' skis and put them in for the night. So it was a very, very chill job, snowboarding in the day and then playing DJ at night. It was, that was when I was cool back in the day. And went and did a bit of time there, then came back to reality, and I worked in telesales. I got a job with bit of a weird company. This was way back in the day when Google was indexing by size of website. So the bigger the website, the higher you were in the SEO ranking, the further you get up top page one. And the two people who had set the company up had met in prison. And figured this thing out. So that was kind of the vibe of this company going forward. It was it wasn't criminal, but it had that kind of vibe.
Wolf of Wall Street type thing.
It wasn't quite that upper echelon. It was more like a kind of mongrel dog, street dog of Wall Street. It was
Not the wolf, mongrel dog of Wall Street.
It was interesting. It was commission only, which was rough. And that was kind of my intro into the working world, and it was terrible. So a couple of things. My first ever day, when I started there, I was being like put under the wing of this guy who was his nickname was Flippy, because he would flip and he would just change with like a blink of an eye, and he'd be suddenly very angry or very crazy. He was an actual loose cannon. And anyway, this guy was teaching me how to do the telesales and how to sell this digital product that we were doing, which was basically mugging old women off, which was horrible. So they would say, you would take someone's website, like this is before the days of Etsy and stuff, so you take someone's little craft website that they've got on the internet, make a page on this big website that they were hosting, which had loads of these other websites as like a kind of business on their business. Then you would have like a little click farm going on within the company where they go click through and say, oh, we've got loads of traffic coming in. Then after a couple of months, you phone them up. You say like, hey, are you going to like continue with this? Like, because you're going to have to start paying it. Free trial's ended. And they would go, what free trial? I don't remember having a free trial. I'm like, look, we got you 400 clicks through traffic in like the last few months. Like, if you lose this, you're going to lose all that traffic. And people are like, oh, well, maybe I'll start paying then. And then I would send them off to the salespeople, and then they close the deal. It was my job was to hook the people in under completely false pretenses. And anyway, on my first day, this guy he was in telesales, and he had a speech impediment, which is already a bit of an uphill struggle. And the very first call that he taught me on is he picked the phone up and he said, like, this is the sales blurb. So we had like a little printout thing, kind of things to, say and kind of read through. And he basically was going through the yellow pages at the time, online directories, and bringing up every company like in an order. And he picked the phone up, and he I don't know, nerves, but he just went, and then hung up. So I was just like, what? That wasn't a lesson. And he was like, oh, I need to sort myself out. I need to calm myself down. So he like went out the room for a bit and just left me sitting there for like half an hour. Then he came back in a very different mood, which I didn't understand why at the time. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Went to the bathroom, came back, and he goes, Ross, there's a present under your mouse mat for you. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, check under your mouse mat. I check under, and there's a line of white powder under there. I was like, what? I looked back at him and he was like, go on. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm in work. This is my first day. I don't know any of you, and I don't even know what that powder is. Like, what the hell? And the whole thing was like that. It was just carnage.
Wow.
They used to have a thing on every Friday, which was the 4-pint challenge. Bearing in mind, you're in telesales, you need to be talking and quick on your feet. We had an hour for lunch, and there was a pub across the road, and they used to do 4 pints in an hour to try and loosen you up a bit. But I never earned any money on Friday afternoon. It was ridiculous.
So that's 1 pint every 15 minutes.
1 pint every 15 minutes. Yeah.
Obviously, I used to play rugby, and the guys didn't actually drink that much in rugby in season. But then the 4-day end of season social was always an absolute.
If you're out and about, 4 pints, an hour is a bit of a push, but I mean, you could do it, but not at work. And not a big day.
Not lunch.
No, and then going back to a commission-only job and having to earn that afternoon when you're actually just smashed, and you're getting more and more smashed until like 3 o'clock, and then you start to get the hangover by like 5. Yeah. So, not great. So
telesales, what you did in Canada, this is?
No, that was in the UK until I got fired. So I didn't like the boss at the time. Me and him just didn't get on. He was very, very right-wing, and I'm not. And there were a couple of discussions we'd had that got a bit heated in terms of me just go to, I love a debate, obviously I was doing philosophy and politics, so I would go back at him, and he'd often say there's no such thing as society, and I would be like, oh, did you make the taps? Oh, did you build the roads that came in here? Like, how did all that happen? Did you figure out the internet and everything? Anyway, I used to call him up on it, and he just had enough of it. So he then came to me and called me into the office after an incident. There was a fire in the office. I can't remember why, but there was a fire in the office. And he said, this company is a circle, and you, Ross, are a square. how do you fit a square into a circle? And then I said, it depends on the size of each. And it does. If you've got a big circle and a little square, it's easy. Yeah. So, said, you're fired, get out. And I just ended up, I got a lift in that day with a friend. And since he was still working, I had to walk home. It was like about an hour walk. So, I just walked all the way home, took my top off and just enjoyed the sun and then walked all the way home. But that was a brutal end to that job.
Yeah. Okay, so you finished philosophy. You have lived in Canada, worked the Four Seasons. You've done telesales. Yeah. How old are you at this point once you finish that job?
I don't know. How old are you when you finish uni? Like 22?
Well, when you finished the telesales?
20. Yeah, that would have been like 23. I probably could work it out. It would be the summer of 2011. Probably like 23-ish. And then after that, I kind of fell into which has been the story for my whole career, is just one long existential crisis of not knowing what I want to do, where I'm going to go. My parents, bless them, had put me through some various courses in terms of like trying to find what you're like good at or find what you'd be interested in, and nothing resonated at all. And there are a couple of things you think, I could do that, but I mean, not really. So I just kind of like hopped between various jobs. Wasn't really kind of sticking with anything. And then I'd ended up landing this job with, it's a really innovative company that were doing this kind of electrical efficiency unit. It was a particular shape that copper was bent into that you fit to the external part of your building, and it reduces all the harmonics, so like all the noise that comes with electricity, and it stops you getting any power surge. It just acts as like a buffer before coming in, and it also extends like the life of all your electrical products in the company. So it was a good company to work for, and they were like rising. I got in there when it was about 20 people. By the middle of it, I got to about 100 plus, sales teams, engineering teams, and then I'd got on holiday. Came back, and it was the second day I'd come back, and I say holiday, I went to a rave festival abroad. I needed some serious time to recover after that, and this was the second day of recovery, and I got a call from an unknown number, and it was a boss of another department had called me, and he was very cryptic. He was like, hey, we've had to let some people go, but we need you to come in the office like tomorrow and just like talk things through. And I was like, what, am I being let go? He's like, I can't say. So obviously I'm being let go. What would you call me? So the company ended up kind of folding. You could see it. You could see the collapse coming. As it was rising up and up, they'd started to get like their friends on the board. There were people that were paid quite handsome salaries for not really seeming to do anything. It seemed like they were kind of dodging tax, maybe, I don't know. But it seemed to get a little bit dodgy at the top. And then, certain things started to fall. And, the company just ended up collapsing. In terms of where it was, it's still going now. I've actually seen them picking up again on LinkedIn, which is quite nice. But, I ended up getting fired from that. And then, which is like 2 firings in a row. And then, what did I do after that? So then, I ended up having another brief time of not knowing what I was doing. In between university, years, when you have the summer off, I would do building work. I had an uncle that was a builder, so I'd go onto building sites. It was a nice bit of work. I really enjoyed kind of the manual labour side of things. I could never see myself in it long term just because of the injuries. Everyone you work with that's like 40, 50 plus, they've got, joint problems, knee problems, back problems, fingers missing. It does take it out of you doing that. But there is a lot of positives to working out. The camaraderie together, the freedom, being able to eat when you want, drink when you want. You could smoke on the job. You could fart on the job, which is really underrated. Not many jobs let you do that, but it's almost celebrated as well, which was a real nice bit of freedom. There's some real problem solving with it, but there is there's some real dirty parts with it, and it definitely made me more strong towards some of those dirtier parts. I mean, actual filth. If you're having to clear out sewers or like old piping that's been clogged for like the last 30, 40 years, and then you're getting it in your hair and you're getting it down your body. It's disgusting. But you kind of just get used to sticking your hands in dirty places, and you get a bit of tolerance for it. It definitely does toughen you up. Eating your lunch out in the snow, that's pretty horrible. I had that twice where I was outside alone in the snow just eating my sandwich. You'd be dressed up in like so many layers. I got chemical burns from it. You can't really see, but there are sometimes when I get a tan, there are like white patches on my arms, and that's from having cement powder, the wet cement powder just like laying on my arms, and kind of the concrete just splashing up your arm and slowly chemically burning you all day. I didn't realise that was the case. So I used to say I'd be so messy, like all up my hands, all over your face, everything from kind of knocking up concrete and cement all day. And I never realised it was actually chemically burning me. So that's been there for years now. I'm hoping that fades, but not really. So yeah, I was doing that in between kind of summers. So after I kind of left that other job, I was doing bits of building work, whether it's manual labor, mainly just kind of being a laborer's laborer. I didn't have any skills, like I couldn't do anything. So I was just lifting with heavy work or like helping other people that could do stuff. And then kind of in between those bits, I then had another uncle who worked in advertising, and he said, you've got quite a creative brain. You come from, like a varied background. You've had various different jobs. I think you'd be really well suited for branding and in brand strategy. How about I can get you an interview with somewhere? And he kind of sent a few things through. And then this one company, I don't really want to dox the company, do I? I don't really want to blur them out, but whatever. A branding agency.
A company.
It wouldn't be hard to figure out. It's on my LinkedIn. But yeah, a company. And I went for an internship there. So they had this like competition where it was 8 interns. So we had this like 4-stage submission. So they sent you a box. It was quite creative. They sent you a box and you had to fill it with various items that defined you and then send that back and have a story with each of them. I can't remember what I put in there. I think there was a glass fish because I used to keep fish. I used to have a pet shark like ages ago. I had a vinyl thing or like some sort of sound thing to say I used to be a DJ, and I can't remember what the other things were. But yeah, I sent those 4 items off. I ended up getting through. And then it was 8 of us were then into this competition. They split us into 2 groups, and they said, right, you're group 1 and group 2, you have to split up, and then you're given a brief, and then it's whoever answers the brief best gets to be part of this like innovation ideas creation hub. So I was like, great, I just get around all day just thinking up ideas. Perfect. At the time, so we absolutely nailed this. So weirdly, about a couple of days beforehand, I'd read an article on stevia. This is way back in the day. So before stevia was a big thing. You know what stevia is? That like
weed?
No, stevia. It's like a sugar substitute. It's like sativa.
Sativa.
Yeah.
Say, Ross, where is this company?
So, stevia was like a sugar substitute.
Yeah, that's...
but it was low, almost 0 calories compared to sugar.
A sweetener.
And like a sweetener, but it's a natural sweetener that's much more powerful and doesn't have some of the downsides of sugar. And the brief was for Coca-Cola, what could be a new direction for Coca-Cola? And I was thinking, obesity is a big thing with Coca-Cola, they're really suffering the news about it. How about we do Coke stevia? That would be amazing. And we could have this new, like, sugar-free but super sweet Coke. So we ended up presenting that. They were like, this is a great idea, really like it. Turns out like 2-3 years later, the green Coke is Coke stevia. So it has actually come out. They've done it. It wasn't
the green one.
I didn't do anything with that. But I'd had that idea years beforehand. Anyway, they said they liked it. We ended up winning. My little group and me and the other 3, and then I was chasing them up for like the next week or so. Like, hey, what's happening? Love to hear back. It was a great company. It'd be great to work for. The first place I've been to where there's like a ping pong table in there. There's a bar and stuff that was open. It was at this top floor right on like London Bridge, so it was a Tower Bridge. A really good vibe there. Lots of cool people worked there, and there was a lot of money flying around. So I was like, this could be a bit of me. I like that. It's the first office I feel like I could be part of. And they just said, actually, you know what, we're just scrapping the innovation department now. We're not going to have it. So I was kind of gutted at the time because I was like, this has been 2 months of like application. I really like the company. There's some cool people here, and I could see myself working here. So then I just messaged them back and said, hey, could I just work for free? Like, I'll come up. I need some experience. I haven't had the office experience like this. I'll give myself like a month free. And they wrote back being like, yeah, I mean, if you want, just come in and do some work. So great way to get in the door, just offer your services for free. Luckily, at the time I was living at home, so, I didn't have any expenses. So I would get the train up with my dad in the morning up to London. And then, worked for them for like a month, started to get more and more involved in the projects, kind of naturally gravitated towards the strategy side of things and was kind of shadowing the strategist. It was a really nice guy. And after kind of the month ended, they would have, like on the Friday, they'd be planning out the next week and they'd be like, right, Ross, you're doing this, you do this, you're going to be on this project. And I was like, well, no, I'm over. Like, this is it. I've done my month. Like, if you want me back, like, you're going to need to give me something official. Like, I need to be here. I can't carry on like this. So because I was already wrapped up and I've been, earmarked for certain projects, they put me on an actual internship there. So I was able to be like a strategy intern. Did that for like about 3 or so months. And I think it was like a 3-month thing that I got given. And the same thing happened. I just kept my head down, kept working as hard as I could on the projects. Got to that last week, they started earmarking me out on projects to do and giving me responsibilities, and there was work that I hadn't finished because obviously it was like, a couple of weeks' work. And I said, look, my internship ended. If you want to keep me, I've got to be like a proper employee. So then they ended up employing me, and I was there for a strategist for quite a bit of time. Very hard work. Like, you'd be in there at 9 o'clock in the morning. There were some weeks you were there till like 2 o'clock in the morning, like a couple of days in a row. Like they give you like a voucher where you could expense dinner and you could expense like a taxi home and stuff. So they kind of took care of you, but it was draining. And even though you're up 2 nights till 2 a.m., you know, I'd roll in like 9:30 the next morning and people were like, Ross, it's half an hour late. I'd be like, yeah, but I've done like 9 hours overtime in the last 2 days. Like, give me half an hour. Like, come on, I'm shattered. Like, I got back at 3 in the morning. You expect me to get up at 8? Like, this is killing me. But they were quite ruthless like that. So then I started keeping a chart and a graph, made graphs out of it of all the overtime that I was doing in terms of the time you're paying me for, and then like the second like line graph behind it of all the extra time that I'm doing.
Really?
And management hated that. Surprise, surprise. They didn't like that I was keeping all of that extra details, being like, hey, you're actually not paying me for this. This is what I should be earning if you were paying me by the amount I'm actually working. Yeah. Which kind of just showed them up as like, because they're taking a mick. You're young, you're hungry, and they know there's loads of people that want to fill your position. So it's kind of like, hey, you need to do this work. The deadline's here. They just lay on like double the projects you actually can handle. So you just got to work twice the amount.
And that's the case in a lot of industries where there's a surplus of workers and, you know, limited opportunity. You know, law's one of them.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like a test of how hard you can work at the start. They don't care. Fashion. My cousin used to work at Rees. I know a few people at the time. There were so many people that want to be merchandisers working in fashion. They pay them awfully. They don't give them promotions. It's awful.
It's brutal at the bottom because they know there's loads of people that would fill your role, and you're kind of lucky to have that. But there's no way to treat people, and it was a good lesson in leadership with that, because my time there, I'd throw myself head and heels into the company. There was a big part of it was I wanted to get better at. So I'd been used to being on stage as a DJ, and I played in front of thousands of people at a time. Not like thousands, but like 2,000 was like the biggest crowd. So I played in front of a serious numbers of people like quite regularly. So I was fine being on stage. I didn't have the nerves, but I didn't really have that much public speaking experience. And I said, look, I need to get better at pitching and presenting. Can you give me some format where I can do this? And then they said, well, every Friday we do like a company rundown, say how the week was, and it'd be nice to have like a fun end to the company meetings. Now, Ross, you've got 10 minutes at the end of this to present to like the 100 people in the company, you know, senior, all the way up to the top, every single week. And I was like, well, what am I going to come up with topics? And they were like, no, we'll crowdsource it. So we'll ask the crowd. Ross has got a topic, and he's got to present a funny topic on that by next week, which actually was a lot more work than I realised it would be. And people were giving me, what were some of the topics? So one of them was tiny holes. Trying to talk for 10 minutes, funny bit of tiny holes. So
tiny holes, is that just like a sort of vague?
As vague as that.
Whatever you want, tiny holes.
Tiny holes.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's, so I'd managed to find out there was a thing called trypophobia, which is one of the only emotionally contagious phobias. So most phobias you're kind of born with, or you'll learn in like a reaction to something, but this one is one you can get by seeing somebody else react to it in an emotional way, and then you can go, oh, now I think I've got that fear as well.
Is it trypophobia?
Trypophobia, yeah.
And what's trypophobia?
The fear of tiny holes.
The fear of tiny holes is a contagious fear.
Yeah, but wait till you see, if you Google pictures of it, you'll start to look at it and go, ugh, and then you can well get it. So it depends whether you want to open yourself up to a phobia or not.
Why is that?
Things like, you'll see it. Once you see the images on Google, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I can see.
What sort of holes are we talking about?
Tiny holes. Yeah, but all kinds of context, from honeycomb to crumpets. Some people, those little holes in crumpets, some people find that a bit yucky. To certain flowers have tiny holes in them. When people have knelt on like a load of ball bearings and they've got those dents in their knees, some people find that a bit yucky. You've got to see somebody reacting to it.
Oh, and then my God, that's so weird. I can imagine, you would be good at that 10-minute slot radius.
It worked out quite well. We did one on butter. That was quite hard. There's one on dolphins, which ended up becoming quite sexual. And that was actually, it wasn't great because it was when it was the, what do you call it, when you bring your kid into work experience. So there were a load of children, like 15-year-olds in the office then. And I delved in quite depth about how dolphins are one of the few animals to not just masturbate, but to use other animals for it, which was, in some of the videos you can find are quite graphic. So yeah, some poor 15-year-olds got a real education.
Come on, listen up.
Listen up.
Ross talking about dolphins. It should be good for the kids.
Yeah,
Ross.
It was hand over 10 minutes. But that, joking aside, it really, really helped me. Getting in front of that crowd, being in front of people from, right up to like creative directors, senior management, right down to my colleagues and other interns, and 80 to 100 people every single week. Really kind of really gave me a lot of confidence with it. And it taught me that the first few I tried to plan everything. So it was like, this is exactly what I'm going to say. Had like a little script in my head. You can't learn a script. Like, I'm not an actor. I can't remember like a 10-minute script off by heart. And it was having that really set rules and exactly how I wanted to go made me more nervous and more likely to muck things up. And I realised that over time, it's like, look, read through the thing a lot, get yourself some like general points. You kind of got a bit of expertise in what you want to say, and then just have some general bullet points. And really what you can do is you can read off the screen and just ad-lib. And if you're a bit more calm about it, take a few breaths, like relax into it, you can do a much better presentation than you would do anyway. Like, yeah, you'll miss some bits that you wanted to say, but I mean, no one knows the bits that you missed out anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with public speaking a lot of the time. I do it quite a lot with what I do. And you want to hit every single point you want to hit.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you're not always going to. I always think I'll finish one, I'll get back and I'll think, should have said this, forgot to ask about that, didn't do this. Actually, they don't know.
Yeah.
They think it's probably great. That's the only time they've seen you. So as long as it's, just because you're judging yourself on your best talk you've ever given,
exactly,
everything else is going to fall short in your mind.
Yeah. That's been a real lesson for me for life, I think, is that perfectionism does cause a lot of anxiety, and it also causes a lot of like stagnation. And really, I think there's a bad thing with school in that people teach you to be like, there's the A star and then the A's and then the B's, and it's all about trying to get like, you know, as best as you can. When in real life, it's nothing like that. And you don't need to put that pressure on yourself. And the way I approach things a lot with work nowadays is to not, it doesn't need to be A star. You need to pass. So really you're aiming for a C. And once you take that pressure off, you think, actually, I just need to get a C. And then once I've got a C, I can up it to a B. And if I've got a B and I know what I'm doing, I can up it to an A, but I've got to get to that C first. And then having that as the aim takes a lot of the pressure off it. So you can just start quite kind of loose and you think, okay, let's just get enough to like scrape by, what is this? And then you can kind of do it without that pressure on yourself. You can find out that once you start getting into it, you start kind of enjoying it, you work things through, it's quite easy to then like fine tune things, and you can end up getting to that B, you know, and probably with the same amount of time you would be if you were going straight for that A anyway.
Yeah, that is a different way of thinking about it as well. I think a lot of people, they take a test, they get a C, they go, I'm a failure. I'm not very good, I'm not very special. People think, well, C leads to a B, leads to an A. It's a nice way. You have a lot of skills, I would say. Would you say you're a hard worker?
It depends what I'm doing. Depends what I'm doing. Sometimes,
good answer.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it's a real drag to like push myself through things if I don't want to do it, basically, or it's something I don't like. It's a real drag. And there are other things where I just find it easy and I can just stay in the zone for ages. You know, I can be up, you know, late into the night doing stuff, or clean miss things that I wanted to do just because I've just been stuck in the moment. I've found that quite a lot with manual labour. I find, and particularly with the gym, is a real kind of example with it, is that almost, I've gymmed like most days since I was about like 14, 15. Yeah. It's always been a big part of my life. Like, I need to get that like energy out of my body just so I can like perform normally. And even to this day, even though I know that how much value it gives me and how much better I feel afterwards, and you know the mental difference I feel from it, and the physical buzz I get from it, still every time before I go to the gym, I'm thinking, oh, do I really want to? Like, I'm not really feeling it. Maybe I could just do it tomorrow. Oh, my leg kind of hurts, so maybe I won't do it today. Like, every single time. And you have to talk yourself out of that. And I find the more I don't want to do it, and the more I talk to myself excuses, are actually the ones where I get the most value from it. And like with all things, so that if you're apprehensive about starting, or you don't think you can make it to the end, don't worry and don't think about the end of the gym and having done all of it. Just say, okay, well, I'm just going to start with the warm-up. And I'm just going to do a couple of press-ups and then see how I feel. I'm just going to do a couple of little air squats, get myself going, see how I feel. You do that a little bit and you think that's a very low bar. So you think, I've only got to do 10 reps. Like, if I don't fancy it, I can always quit. Just do that, and then after that you think, I could do a little bit more, and I could do a little bit more, and then before you know it, you've done, you know, one of the best workouts you've had in ages.
Runners talk about that, don't they? Because when you run, a lot of people go, I can't be arsed with this. But actually, as long as you're okay, and our producer here, Alex, is a fell runner in Snowdonia.
What runner?
So a fell runner, he runs on hills.
Okay.
For those listening, Alex is our producer of every episode so far. But it's all about, as long as it's not too painful right now, then you can carry on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not in so much pain that you have to stop.
Yeah.
Even in weights, you get to set, you're doing a set of 10. Once you get to that 10th, you actually can't lift it.
Yeah.
When you're running, as long as you can keep going, that pain, just get comfortable with it. And after that point, it's actually quite easy. I do find with the gym, though, 3 sets of 10, these sorts of workouts, I too have been gymming since about maybe 17, consistently every week. When I was a rugby player, gymming all the time. It does get a bit dull. 3 sets of 10 all the time, or 3 sets of 8, whatever it is. After a while, I do think, I need to change this up.
Yeah, well, that's what you need to do, variety. So you mix up different exercises. For me as well, it's a really key time for me to get through some music. So I listen to a lot of new music on like a regular basis. I go between I'd say between 250 to 400 new songs every single month. And I've done that since I was about 18. So a music collection is a piece of beauty. But to get through that, I need to spend a couple of hours a week just going through new. Obviously, I don't like every song that I listen to. I'm going through albums, going through artists that I like, and just giving them a chance, seeing what I like. And if I like it, I pull it aside and then save it for later.
How many did you say you listened to a week? Sorry, was it
a week? A week would be, easy 60. I would say. 60 is a standard. 60 is like a minimum.
60 songs.
I would say 60 to 100 a week.
Okay, that's
new songs.
Yeah, that's
a lot. It sounds like a lot, but really, if you go through just your Spotify release radar and your weekly recommended, that's 60. So you're doing that and then follow a few artists.
I often will listen to a song first time, not really like it, but it's the third time I listen to it. That's why it's a bit like mirror exposure effect, right? Where the more you're exposed to something, the more you like it. It's why politicians spend millions on just having their face up somewhere because you feel like you know them. Same thing with songs. If you hear it on the radio 3 or 4 times, then you listen to it, you start to go, I like that music.
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
How do you overcome that?
I don't have that. Because I think I've listened to so much, I can listen to a second and a half of a song and I'll just play a little bit and I can know from the sounds, the way they sound, like the way they're making it. I'll skip in there, skip in another bit and I can know whether that's a song for me or not. So I can listen to songs very fast.
What's your genre?
Loads. So,
oh, really? You can't be tied down.
No, I'm tied down to certain. So I don't. It's easy to rule a lot out. I don't really like guitars in almost any context. I don't like electric guitars. I don't like acoustic guitars. There's always exceptions to the rules, like classic acoustic, old school classical music. I do quite like, and I don't really like singing. So voices and guitars, that rules out a lot of music, like no indie, no rock.
Really?
Not at all. It just doesn't do stuff for me. There are obviously exceptions. Reggae is a big exception for that. They use guitars a lot in that, and there's obviously a lot of singing in it, and I've got a lot of time for reggae. That's a big genre for me, especially in summer. I was listening when the summer's on today. I had my 5-star reggae playlist on the way here, and it got me in a very good mood.
Yeah.
But I started on, so it's mainly a following DJing, so I kind of grew up with the golden era of drum and bass. I was just getting into it just as that first golden era was kind of ending, and loved it. That's always got a very, very special place in my heart. And I was kind of drum and bass, and then grime at the time. Again, grime was just emerging at that kind of time. You're talking like early 2000s. I think early 2000s to 2010 was one of the most creative periods in music ever. There were genres popping up from all over the place. It was from individual artists, so it wasn't mass-produced stuff. It was really creative. All the rules were thrown away. Dubstep was born during that time, kind of in the early part of that.
Yeah.
And I was there for the very early days of when dubstep initially started, like 2004, 2005, and then I kind of caught on to it like 2005, 2006, and saw that genre rise out of nowhere. And yeah, that was a very special time to be part of music.
Do you remember SBTV?
Yeah, vividly.
I remember that was a friend of mine loved that sort of thing. He was all on Channel.
Channel U and SBTV were big back in the day.
SBTV was Ed Sheeran, wasn't it? He was one of their first.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I wasn't not really a fan of. It's guitars and singing. So
yeah, I know
exactly.
Sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. I'm sorry, but I do remember that because I would be a bit younger than you at that point. But I'm still that same amount of younger than you now. But no, you're very into your DJ. The DJ world is so far away from what I do. I'm very interested in what that's like. You've told me a few stories before, but it sounds like a much more frantic lifestyle.
Yeah, it was. The easiest way to describe it is nocturnal, which isn't healthy at all. Like I really enjoyed something. Preface this, I'm not huge, I'm not famous or anything. Like I had my own radio show. That was a lot of fun. Kind of every Thursday I'd DJ on a radio, which was on.
What frequency was that?
It was on AM, which meant it was global, which was hilarious. So sometimes they'd get callers because other people were coming into us. We had this Jamaican MC who would come on for a little bit, really funny guy, and he would obviously tell his family out in Jamaica. I had these Canadian cousins now, so we had people in Canada. Things we had people from all over the world calling in during our little 2-hour show on Thursdays, 10 till 12 on Red 1404 AM. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Did you have a little jingle?
No.
This is Ross Ducat.
And looking back at it, so I have got some of the old recordings from it, and there's a lot of, because I was never sober doing it, so there were a lot of mistakes when we were doing it, and we had to take, because they didn't have proper equipment, and I had some nice Technic decks, we'd have to take them down in a shopping trolley. I would take them from my uni room, we'd nick a trolley from the supermarket, stuff all like the turntables and the mixer and everything else, and my booth speakers all in this trolley, and then walk with the trolley to the radio station, unpack it all, set it all up in the radio station, and then lock the door and just smoke in there, which obviously wasn't allowed. But we would have a few friends in with us at the time, and we just lock the door and just have like our own little. It was basically like my bedroom, but on steroids, because there was all the studio equipment there. But I really enjoyed that. Had like. I used to play in like mainly the university club, so we were kind of given. I set up the Dubstep Society University, so then because I had that, I was then allowed to kind of take over certain nights and kind of run certain nights. And the guy that was kind of running a lot of the university club nights just handed it over to us, because you can see we knew what we were doing good stuff. So we got to run some of our own nights and pick our dream team. So we had some big acts that we ended up putting on at like peak times. They'd be there at like midnight, 1 until kind of like 2 a.m. And then we'd always do the graveyard shift, so 4 till 6 in the morning, which I always found that's the best time anyway, because then all the pussies have gone home and it's all the good people are staying until the end. The people that stay to the end really care about it. So 4 till 6 was, there's a bit more space on the dance floor. It was always the most fun I had doing that. And we got to play with some famous people. So we had Andy C was my favourite. Andy C, world's best drum and bass DJ, like 8 years in a row. Like he's on another level in terms of his musical ability, his sense of rhythm, and he was genuinely a nice bloke. He would, compared to the others, I'll tell you about the others in a sec, but he came up to the university. We met him outside the back of the club. He asked for just a bottle of water as his rider. So a rider is what you get as a DJ, is like a present for turning up. You can ask for certain drinks to be requested for you if you're like you and the rest of your crew that turn up. He just wanted a bottle of water, turned up by himself, like he just got a taxi up there. And he was just playing like on vinyl, and he was just doing three at once, just picking through, laying it down, and holding 3 songs in perfect rhythm in his head simultaneously. And he'd gone 10 minutes over his set, so it was like we've only paid him for the hour. So I didn't want to tell him he's the best drummer. He's like an idol to me. I'm not telling my idol, hey, get off, sling your hook, we're not paying you. So I nudged my mate, who was like my DJ partner. I was like, look, you've got to tell him. So he went up to him and he was like, look, Andy, hey, you've gone 10 minutes over, only paying for an hour. And he was like, I know, just please, just like 2 more songs. Like a 15-year-old who's just started. So I was like, mate, if you want to go. Like, as long as you're happy not being paid, like I could sit and listen to you all night. Like he was amazing. He did that. He stayed around afterwards. He heard like our intro to our set. Like he's heard me and my mate do a couple of mixes. He signed loads of stuff for us, shook all our hands, like a genuinely nice bloke. He didn't have to do any of that. And he didn't know us. We weren't like famous or anything. So he was a genuinely nice bloke. Contrast that with Pendulum, who turned up. You've heard of Pendulum? They're like Australian group. They're quite big. Yeah. Turned up late. I can't remember what else they did. Their MC they had with him, I can't remember the name of it. He was a really nasty guy. They were just dismissive of us. I mean, you turn up to a random university and there's a couple of students hosting a gig. Like, you've been on stage at festivals, you've headlined like big things. Like, who are these people? But there's no need to treat us like that. So I had their number. I had Pendulum's number for a while after that, and we would prank them at least once a month. This is way back in the day, but yeah, we'd phone them up, prank them, like we'd give them a little bit of shit. The worst was we had Chase and Status, very famous, and we had one of them, I can't remember whether it was Chase or Status, anyway, one of them turned up. We put them in for an hour. They turn up 15 minutes late in a blacked out Range Rover, like screeching up to the back of the club, come out, first words were, where's my rider? Mate, I mean, it's not even a hello or anything else. Like, yeah, here are your free drinks. You wanted like, I don't know, a gin and a vodka and something else. Like, here you go. He took it and just like, him and his mate just like pocketed them. He then turned up, cut the music off. So normally as a DJ, the music's playing, you come in and then play off that music. Like, you keep the club going. But no, stopped it all. Was like, okay, maybe you want a dramatic start or whatever. Stopped it all, started his set, was playing, and they did about 40 minutes. And instead of letting someone mix out of him, he just went, and turned it all off. The club goes silent, started packing up his stuff. We're like, what are you doing? You haven't done your full hour. He's like, yeah, I was paid till 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. Like, yeah, but you turned up 15, 20 minutes late. Like, that's not how that works. He just walked away. So I was like, all right, cool. You didn't say goodbye to any of us, did not a thank you, just turning up and demanding alcohol and then just walking away. So yeah, they really disappointed him. But we ended up nicking one of his CDs. This is when we were doing CDJs back in the day. We nicked a CD and we got Saxton, which was a big song for them back in the day, a big dubstep tune. We got that way before anybody had ever heard it.
Yeah.
So
they were Blind Faith, weren't they?
Blind, yes, yeah.
I used to love that song. Maybe I won't love it as much anymore.
No, and it's weird how some of that music has dated stuff that. Even last night when I was telling you I was up listening to Stupid up at drum bass on at like 1 o'clock in the morning last night. And yeah, it was weird hearing back some of those tunes that give me a lot of nostalgia, but at the same time they're like dating me now, but they're over 20 years old, some of those tunes. And yeah, music has moved on.
Yeah, but that whole world is just quite wild. You've told me before the actual lifestyle that some of these guys lead, you can't just be an everyday person.
No, it's exhausting. I wasn't deep into it, and I was still thinking, especially in the UK in winter. And bearing in mind, I still had like study and stuff. I was at university, and so I used to run my own club night on a Monday. When me and my DJ partner had this club night on a Monday, and we'd be up till like the thing finished at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd obviously be like hyper and full of energy, and you wouldn't really get to sleep till like 6, 7 o'clock. So you're in darkness throughout all of the night. You would then go back to your home in the dark. You would sleep through all the day, and you'd wake up at like 4 p.m. when it's pretty much getting dark anyway in the UK, and then you go back up, go to sound check, and then be playing on Tuesday night as well. And if you're doing that for like most of the nights of the week, you're just completely nocturnal, and you don't see the sunshine for a long time, and it's not good for the soul. It's not.
And what about some of these? Now you hang around with a few of these massive DJs that you got to know early days, but who live these sort of lifestyles where they are just...
It's intense.
It's women all over the place. It's huge amounts of money. It's quite mental, from what you've told me.
Yeah, I mean, you think Crimea River, I mean, you're living like most men's dream, or most people's dreams, of being able to fly around, getting paid for what you love, what you're doing. But it is draining. It's like anything. Once you get to the top level, usually your diary's out of your hands. You become kind of productized to yourself, and you lose that kind of control. And yeah, you're made to fly around the world. You can only really sleep on planes. You're waking up in different time zones. I think that's a fast way to kill yourself, or slow way to kill yourself. And I've seen some friends struggle with it. But yes, that's a big reason I think why mental health is such a big thing in the music industry, is just because it's a struggle to live like that. You don't have that normality. I was at a very low level, and even I was struggling with it. You just, after living only at night time and doing that for quite a bit, you just want to have like a normal conversation. Like everyone you talk to is drunk or more. You're only in kind of your social kind of encounters are in smoking areas outside. And you just want to go out for lunch and just talk about normal, like mundane things, talk about the news. Like you don't know what's going on. Like you're caught up in a world of it. And I was meant to be studying. There was a particular class I really didn't do well in at university, which was, so after that Monday night gig at 9 o'clock in the morning, I had a philosophy course on rationalism and empiricism. So, people talking about, what is a triangle? What is triangleness? Is there such thing as a perfect triangle? Like that is the last thing you need on a hangover. Yeah. You've had like 2 hours sleep. So I didn't do very well in that class at all. It was a bit of a struggle, but fun times. It opened a lot of like opportunities for me. It gave me a lot of new experiences. It was a fun time of life. And that's back when I was cool. I'm not cool anymore.
And with that, I shall bring an end to part 1. I really hope you enjoyed it. And to add a little bit of excitement for part 2, I'll ask you a question. What do the ancient Greeks, Salvador Dali, Albert Einstein, Ludwig van Beethoven, Thomas Edison, and Nikola Tesla all have in common? Well, they all used a hypnagogic state to help enhance their ideas, which is exactly what Ross's app can do for you. So when you're ready, click on to part 2. Goodbye.